over the summer, my English teacher challenged my class and I to read 10 books. And she said, if you do this, I'll take you guys to go rock climbing. And so I was like, I'm in. And so I read all my books, and I was, finishing up on the last couple nights till we were going to go rock climbing. And I emailed her, said, I'm ready to go. So we go, and I arrive at the location, and the people who run the location, they say, come over here, we're going to show you how to belay people down the rock wall. And so the employee teaches me and my English teacher, this is how you pull this lever back to belay the person on the wall down, and you hold on to this rope this way, etc., etc. And so we're pretty educated, and she says, all right, I think you guys are good. I'm going to go walk over here, go on the computer, do some stuff. Just let me know if you need any help. So, of course, I volunteer to go first. And so I climb up the wall, and everything's fine until then. And then I'm 40 feet in the air on ropes, and my English teacher is forgetting how to belay, which is the thing that saves your life in rock climbing, or else you'll die and fall. And so she eventually remembered how to, but in that moment I was sweating, my heart was beating. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. But eventually she belayed, and she remembered how to belay correctly. But in that moment, I had to trust my English teacher to know what she was doing, and she did know what she was doing. And this reminds me of a story that we find in Daniel 3. It's the story where King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon makes a huge statue of himself, and he commands everyone in the entire nation to bow down to him. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the three people who believe in their God, not Nebuchadnezzar, they don't bow down. And Nebuchadnezzar comes over to them and says, I'll give you one last chance to bow down to me. And I love this response. I love the response that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego give. They say, Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if he does not rescue us, we want you as king to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you set up. This is the equivalent of being a citizen in North Korea and going to Pyongyang, the capital, and they make everyone bow down to the statue of Kim Jong-un. Imagine if you were a citizen there and you didn't bow down. You'd probably be sent to a labor camp till you die, or you'd be executed. That's pretty much the same situation that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were in. They were going to be thrown into the fiery furnace, and they were. And actually, King Nebuchadnezzar ordered it to be 7 times hotter than it normally is, because he was infuriated with him. But they knew that they served the God that would deliver them. And they get thrown in the fire, and King Nebuchadnezzar sees another person in the fire and says it looks like a son of God. And it was actually the son of God. And they come out of the fire clean. King Nebuchadnezzar says, praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel and rescued his servants who trusted in him. They violated the king's command and risked their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore, I issue a decree that anyone of any people, nation, or language who says anything offensive against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn limb from limb and his house made a garbage dump. For there is no other God who is able to deliver like this. Then the king awarded Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. You see, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew that their God was with them. They knew that it says in Isaiah 43, verse 2, this is what God says, you will not be scorched when you walk through the fire, and the flame will not burn you. And then verse 5 says, do not fear, for I am with you. They knew that God would save them from the fire. And they also, in Psalm 72, they also knew another promise of God. He will redeem them from oppression and violence, for their lives are precious in his sight. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were true servants of God. They represented him in Babylon. They were blameless in God's sight. And the reason that they had this much faith, that's what's so that's why I love this story so much. They had so much faith, and they knew their God so well, because they prayed to God. I'm sure they were praying to God in that fire. I mean, that's scary. But it says I love this in Philippians 4, 6 through 7, don't worry about anything, but in everything, through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses every thought, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So the main question I have for you today is, do you know God so well that you would go into a life-threatening situation? You give your life for God because you knew that he would deliver you from the fire. Do you have that much faith? Thank you.